right, folks, welcome back. Slingin Dirt Media here. Now we're on the YouTube channel. I'm sitting with the small, cool one, Billy Vaughan. Billy, I like that nickname. That's cool as crap.
Well, it kind of just rolled off. And actually, if you want to know where it came from, it was Kenny Canada. And myself and Bob Pierce was standing there discussing something, looking at the racetrack. Kenny comes by and says, "Oh, we got the tall, cool one and the small, cool one." So it kind of stuck from there.
Yeah, so. I always thought that was so cool. And I knew it had to be something related with Bob, because you always drove a Pierce car for a long time.
Yeah. And actually, Brad Greer was walking by, and he heard it as well. And you can imagine he ran with it. Yes. So.
Brad's a character. I like Brad. Brad actually, not that long ago, taught me how to drink bourbon.
Yeah, I heard that on one of your deals. There.
So I'm a big bourbon fan now.
Okay,
thanks,
good.
Brad. Appreciate that. So let's go back. Tell me, where did you start racing?
Well, I got started. Actually, my dad got me started. My dad raced cars years ago, and I didn't.
We got to thank him.
Yeah, right. And I didn't get to obviously get to see him race, but so then we got going racing go-karts.
Mm-hmm.
Messing with dirt bikes, this and that,
right.
And my dad just had a passion for it just as much as I did. So
right.
That's what got us going. We started out, actually, if you want to, myself and David McWilliams grew up together.
Okay.
Ever since kindergarten. Yeah. Myself, David, and Scotty Miller, we were like the three amigos just ever since kindergarten. And, of course, I grew up with David in that junkyard. We was always riding our dirt bikes, this or that, and messing around with stuff. And I believe the first car that David was messing around with stuff, and I think it was a 1972 Pontiac Catalina, the old bomber class.
Right.
And me and David messed with that. And, growing up, David was always running the records and stuff. And if David was there, I was there. And if I was there, David was there.
Yeah.
So, and then, like I said, my dad just loved the racing. And we were doing the go-karts. And Chris Weatherall had a sportsman car for sale.
Okay.
And Dad said, "Well, you're going to sell one of your toys." So I sold my three-wheeler. And that was our first sportsman car that we bought from Chris Weatherall.
Three-wheeler turned into a sportsman car. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I think we did that for a year. And we bought a late model from Vern Coley.
Okay.
This is going way back.
Yeah.
And if anybody remembers Vern, great guy. He had a number 22. It was, and he ran a lot of asphalt stuff, but he ran dirt stuff too. But he had the old 22 Miller High Life car.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
If you can think of that, give me some pictures of this. We'll blend these pictures in with this.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I know I got some somewhere.
Yeah, just dig them up.
So we did that. I think it was an old Howe car. We raced that for a year, and then we bought a car from, I believe, Jim Shell.
Yeah.
I believe it was a Pro chassis.
So I gotta ask this: do you happen to remember by any chance that first car you sold the three-wheeler and bought that first sports car? Do you remember what you paid for it?
$1,000.
$1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Jesse, he told me
that was no motor, just a car.
Motor, just a car. Yeah. Jesse told us when we sit down his first race car, it was $100 car.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta see what's a $100 car look like. Yeah. It was pretty much what you would think for $100.
Yeah. And so we took that, and then we moved on up through, and we bought a brand new Rayburn car, and that was back. I know Jimmy and Johnny Holt helped us out with that, and Troy Green helped us out quite a bit.
Yeah,
and then,
Troy was big on the Rayburn cars.
Oh yeah. And so we ran the Rayburn cars for a long time. And I think even back then, you were talking a complete rolling car from Rayburn was like $10,000,
right.
Which was a lot of money back then.
So we're saying back then. Let's clarify. What year was that first sportsman car?
Now you're putting me on the spot.
I'm
thinking.
What I do.
the very first sportsman car I had was probably.
Are we mid '80s? Early 80s?
Yeah, I was 80, probably 86.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
86 to 87. And then the first late model was the 88 year.
Okay.
Yep.
So this was long before the modifieds even came around. I vaguely remember the first time they came to Florence, and was it 2 or 4 cars they had, and they said, "Hey, this is the new thing. This is coming out of the Northeast, and this is going to be the latest greatest thing."
Yeah.
So eventually you found your way to the modifieds.
We did, and you're gonna like this story. So we sold all the late model stuff. We were just getting out.
It's
it was
gone.
just too much money.
Yeah.
And my wife and I was in Perkins one morning, and up in Florence, going to eat breakfast and run into Kurt Addison.
Okay.
And he's like, Billy, he says, I got a perfect thing. He says, I got a mod, I got a trailer, car, everything, perfect deal.
This is
what
probably
you need.
back when they were calling them E-mods.
Yes, it was. It was.
E-mods.
So I was like, I was like, I think Missy seen it in my eyes. I was like, I was ready to go.
Rose. Yeah.
I said, well, I'll get with you, Kurt. And this is kind of when Mom and Dad helped me out tremendously all my whole career.
Yeah.
But we went out and we bought this car, and I'll never forget it. You got these not even half the size of tires as I was used to. And I went out there and hot lapped, and it was just like, just a fish out of water.
A little different?
Yeah, this thing was, I was like, man, I don't know about this. And
what did we get into?
Yeah. So I calmed down, figured it out. We went out after hot laps, and we used to qualify, and we got it figured out. Matter of fact, I think the second night we was out in that car, we won with it.
Okay.
And
that's a good positive step.
Yeah. And it was like, it just kind of went. So
now, was this back when they were still all leaf springs? Or
oh, yeah, leaf springs. It was
nothing like what they are now.
No. Pretty much the whole full front clips, all that. So we sold that car after a year and actually made some money off of it. And then we got going and we bought I got into the Intimidator cars.
I remember the Intimidator cars. Yeah.
And we got running pretty good there. And, I was probably winning anywhere, 8-10 races a year.
That's a pretty good season.
Yeah, it was good. And I won my first championship in an Intimidator car.
Okay.
And
now these were the cars you guys were lifting the left fronts up off the ground is what I remember on the Intimidators. That was the first mods that I remember getting all excited about. Like, hey, that's pretty cool looking.
And they were even we started out with them, they were leaf spring cars.
Right.
And then midway through that we switched over and went either the spring behind stuff or whatever.
They started getting radical.
Yeah. So we were doing pretty good. Won our first championship there at Florence, and actually, how I got hooked up with Bob Pierce was Jerry King.
Okay.
The story that was told was that I found out later down the road was it was funny because Bobby Simpson, and a lot of guys will remember Bobby helped Troy Green for years, was a great guy, and at that time he was crew chiefing for Bob Pierce.
Okay.
And I believe it was North-South weekend or something, and Bobby come over and said, hey, Billy, he says, at the end of the night, Bob Pierce wants to talk to you. And, I've never talked to Bob Pierce before. And I was like, what's he want to talk to me for?
What I did him.
so I went down, and he was busy there after the races, and he handed me his card, and he says, I really want to talk to you about getting you in one of my cars. And I said, okay. He says, call me on Tuesday.
Okay.
And I said, all right. I said, I would. And well, when I called him at the time, Bob said, I really want to get you in one. He said, I'm going to sell it to you at dealer price, and a complete rolling car is $10,000. And I said, well, Bob,
pricey.
I said, I really appreciate it, but I'm on this deal with Mario from Intimidator, and I was paying $7,500 for a rolling car at the time.
Right.
And like I said, we were successful.
Right. You had a name at this point.
Yeah. So I said, man, that's $2,500. That's my tire money for the year.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know. Let me think about it. So I called him back and I said, Bob, my mom and dad wanted me to go back in a late model racing. We got successful. Yeah. I got smarter as a driver, before
we've advanced. We've come a little ways.
Yeah. When I started out, it was all on me, and I was just young, dumb, and wanted to go fast. And wasn't putting the work in that I needed to. Didn't know what I needed to do.
Sure.
And after by the time I figured it out, Mom and Dad was like, "No, we're done here. We spent too much money.
We've spent enough to learn from."
So, but then I got to figuring that out, and then they bought me at an auction, and actually, it was a all aluminum engine. I believe it was a 430. I don't know if it was a Malcut. I don't remember what it was. Yeah. Anyhow, I called Bob. I said, Bob, I tell you what. I said, I'd really like to get in one of your cars. I said, I got an all aluminum engine here, complete. I don't know nothing about it. Jerry Rice, of course, me and Jerry were great friends.
Yeah.
He drove that motor for somebody, and Bob actually talked to Jerry on it, and he called me back and he says, I really don't need this motor. He says, but I need you in a car at Florence. And he said, I'll trade you. And that's how I got into my first
That's how you got
Pierce.
in your first Pierce
Yes,
car.
trade. And we took that motor out there. First time I've ever went to Pierce's. And I said, where do you want this motor? And he said, just put it there under the bench. And when we came back to get the car, I told him, I said, to make this right, I think he was working with ProPower at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, take that thing out the bill and make sure, because if there's, if that thing, if the bottom's ate out of it or whatever,
Right.
I don't want to do this deal. I'm not in it to mess anybody over.
Yeah.
And he goes, he said, okay, I will. Well, when we went back to pick the car up, that motor was still sitting there. And I said,
didn't even crack the valve cover.
He said, Billy, I'm not worried about that motor. He said, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it ended up being, it was fine. And then later down the road, I asked him, I said, Bob, why'd you pick me to do that? And he says, well, you were winning races out there. He said, I'll be honest with you. He said, I was going to give Jerry King a chassis to give away at, a drawing or something at the banquet.
Something, yeah.
And Jerry King told him, said, no, don't do that. He says, something will happen. You get wrong guy will end up, or they won't race it, or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
He says, you need to get with Billy Vaughan.
Yep.
He said, he's in the mod. He's doing good.
Yeah.
And that's actually how we got hooked up with Pierce.
That's how you got hooked up.
And I didn't know that till a lot later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a deal one time with a local chassis builder, and he was like, man, I want you in one of my cars. I said, man, that's great. It's brand new chassis and everything, but it's like, man, I can't afford to put all the good bells and whistles. And I eventually turned it down because it's like, man, I can't afford to make that car what it could be. I don't want to make you guys look bad just because I can't afford to make it what it should be. If I'm out there and I'm running toward the back, that's not going to look good for you guys.
Right.
So it's like, man, I appreciate it. We'll just do something else.
Right.
I appreciate it though, but yeah. So I get what you're saying. He wanted somebody that knows.
Right.
He's going to put the car up front.
And it worked out. I mean, we went from, I was excited with 8 races a year. I think the second year I was in a Pierce car, we ran 23 features at Florence, and I won 18 of them.
Yeah.
That was and I think the only reason that we had a couple seconds, but most of it was DNF, something happened, flat tire, whatever the case may be.
If you were finishing, you were probably going to win.
Yeah. And the points battle was even still tight at that.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Hartman ran second to me about every week.
Yeah.
And that last night, I had to be there and finish the feature to win it, but and we ended up winning that championship night.
Now, do you happen to remember what year this was? And there's a reason I'm asking that.
That would have been, I won the first championship in '96, so this is probably '02, somewhere in there.
All right. The reason I ask is I bought my first modified. I bought from Kevin Hartman.
Mm-hmm.
And the year I bought it from him, I started racing the mod in '05. And the year before, he ran the car. He ran second in points too. So that's why I was just wondering if that might have been the same car or not.
Yeah.
Real close in time frame there.
Yeah. It was. Me and Kevin had. Then he finally went and got a Pierce car.
Yeah.
And then he was on me.
That's exactly what he did. He was moving from the old DeWitt car, the chassis.
Yep.
Now that's if I remember this right, he bought that car from Ted Nobby.
Yeah.
Ted Nobby ran the car, and then it still had the blue decking from when Nobby had it. He just changed, put all the black stuff on it, and went racing.
Yeah, me and Kevin, we had a lot of fun together. We liked messing with him, and then Uncle Ray and Gene and them guys would be in there, and they would every week after we got the car done and stuff, we'd be loading up on Saturday, and they would be like, all right, what are we going to do to mess with Kevin this week? And we would do something. Well, Gene took a bottle of purple paint, because I ran purple chassis back then. That was kind of my deal. And he put that in there. Kevin come in the trailer that night, and he told him, he said, he goes, I'm going to go ahead and show you the secret to this, how we're winning.
The purple.
And he gave him that bottle of purple paint. Oh, Kevin was so mad. We would cover our tires up, just anything we could do to mess with him.
Right.
And we had a lot of fun. Kevin was great. It was great racing with Kevin.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
You take a guy you buy a car from, and I don't know anything about modifieds. I came from super dirt, went into modifieds, and I'm like, I knew nothing. So it's funny you talk about how you and Kevin got along so good, because when I needed advice or I needed to know what to do, and I didn't know that at the time, but you and Kevin were the two that I went to for advice or had questions. It's like, hey, what should I do? And speaking of tires, I think I even bought some used tires from you because I wasn't buying new tires.
Yeah. Kevin would get on me. He goes, "You're killing this sport." I said, "Why?" He goes, "You buy a new tire every week." I said, "Well, I'm winning every week. You got to start buying two."
You know, it's funny you say that because I asked Kevin, and he's like, he started adding up when I was picking the car up. He was telling me, yeah, we bolt on. I could have swore he told me we bolt on 4 brand new ones for the feature every week. And I'm like, I'm starting to add this stuff up. Wait a minute, and you win how much? I'm like, man, even if you win every week, you're not going to break even.
I think back then they paid $450 to win or something. You know?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It was.
I couldn't tell you because I was nowhere near winning one.
Yeah, it was rough, but
yeah,
we did what we did, and we actually figured it up one night. You know, we figured that if
I'm afraid to ask, but I want to hear those numbers.
Well, we figured it up, and we figured that if everybody would just come to the garage and instead of going to the racetrack and I bought all the beer, we would still come out ahead. Yeah. So, but we did. You know, the last few years I was Pierce. You know, it was with Bob and Angie. It really helped me out. We did a lot. We went out and traveled a lot. The first time I was in Danville, Illinois, and we won at Florence that night. And there was, I don't remember the memorial race, but it was $5,000 to win at Danville. And we come back to the house. This is when I lived over in Frogtown. We restocked the trailer and got everything we needed, took showers, and I think we showed up at Pierce's shop like 3:30 in the morning.
Right, after leaving Florence that night.
Yeah, and we unloaded the car, and we were going to race at Danville, which is just in Pierce's backyard right there. And Denny, oh, that's terrible. Anyway, Denny was there at the shop, and he come out, and we had the car unloaded, and we're getting ready. He goes, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "We're going to run Danville tonight." He goes, "Oh, man, that's great." And he said, "Well, here, you just pull it in the shop and work on it." So we did, and then the phone rang. It was Bob, and I think he was he raced to Show Me the night before.
Okay.
And he was on his way to Terre Haute, or I think it was Terre Haute. They were running there Sunday night. And he goes, "Well," he said, "I'm messing with Vaughan here." He goes, "Well, what's wrong with him?" He said, "Nothing. He won last night in Florence. He's going to run Danville tonight." He said, "You tell him I'll be there." So
change of plans.
He did. He did. And, you know, he showed up. I was in the car getting ready to qualify. And, you know, I've never been to Danville, and I'm sitting there in line, and somebody comes up and grabs my arm, and I'm like, you know, "What's going on here?" And it was Pierce. He goes, "Now, I want you to go in here and do this, do that." And then he goes, "Oh, hell with it. Just go out there and crack a good lap." So I did, and I think we ended up like fourth quick. That was fourth heat race. And he goes, he said, you know, we ended up winning the heat race, and I'm starting. I don't know where I think it's fourth or second row. He goes, "Here's the deal." He says, I was on the outside, second row outside. He said, "You take the green." He said, "Go into one, never lift." He says, just go to the high side, pass them all, and then get to the bottom and never come off the bottom. And I'm like, "All right, Bob." And it was just like, that's exactly what happened. I took the lead, went to the bottom, and was just checked out. And, you know, all these guys were like, they were hanging around the holler and this and that. They were lined up. And Angie and Missy was sitting in the holler there. And I looked at Angie. I said, "Angie, all these guys kind of looking at me like, you know, I got 2 hits. What's going on here?" They're like, "Well, they're waiting to talk to Bob, but he won't talk to them." I said, "Well, why won't he talk to him?" He said, "Well, he keeps telling them, and by the time they go back," he goes, "reason Bob helps you is you do everything he tells you to do."
They don't change the story 5 times before they get back to the car.
Right. Yeah. And that's why me and Bob hit it off. Mike Mullins used to video all my races, and he would do basically what you guys are doing, but he would edit, do whatever he had to do. And this was back in the old VCR days.
Yeah.
Okay. He would send Bob the VCR tape, and then I'd have one, and I'd always have it ready because, you know, Bob, he loved working in the shop, you know, late at night. And he would usually call me between 10 and 11:30 at night on Tuesday night. He'd get the tape, put it in, and we spent that whole season, and he would tell me what I was doing wrong, driving the car, or what the car was doing, you know.
Right.
And and that's how we got to where we were. But I lived off of what Bob told me.
Right.
Especially these chassis guys, I didn't know everything there was about the car, but I did everything Bob Pierce told me to do.
And as long as you did that, it was successful.
And it was easy because that way, if there was a problem with the car, he knew where it was at.
He knew what to adjust and what to tell you to do, which is a win-win for everybody.
Yes.
Because that sold him a lot of cars.
That's right. That's right. So that's how we did that, and that deal went a while, and I don't know what year it was. We came in, we were still winning races, and I just kind of looked at my house, and it was like it needed paint, it needed this, it needed that, and I'm like, it's time to sell.
Yeah.
And Missy goes, what do you mean it's time to sell? I said, it's time to sell.
Yeah.
I said, you know what? If I'm good enough, somebody will call me and ask me to drive.
Sure.
But I'm, my kids were coming up there. Holly was starting to race go-karts. Hunter was just real little yet. And I was like, you know what? Let's sell it. And Chris Weatherall's uncle out in California bought my truck and trailer.
This was the big black one with the flames on it.
Yep,
yeah. I remember that.
Yep. That's another story there, how I ended up with that deal. But, and then I think a couple of the cars sold. Kevin bought one of my engines. Everything else kind of sold local. And we just kind of set out. Now, I was still selling cars for Bob and putting them together, whatever, and this and that. And I had some customers. Actually, Greg Payne was from down around Clay City. Yep. And he'd come up, and I'd scale his cars, set them up, and this and that. And I'd drive. And every time he came up here, the first time I was going to Florence with him.
Okay.
And him and his wife, and it was like, well, you want to just drive the car tonight? I was like, well, yeah, I'll drive it. And we won with it.
Right.
And every time he came up here, I won with that car. And it was the number 11 car. But and then that just turned into more and more, and then I kind of got out driving for other people. So.
Which turned out to be a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm very, very fortunate. I've got to meet a lot of great people.
Right.
A lot of great sponsorship, that's been with me from day one. And then the other sponsors for some of the people that I drove for, we got to become great friends with them and got no regrets. It's all been good.
So let's take a quick break. We'll throw caution here, whatever you want to call this. We'll take a quick break, and we're going to do a part 2 because I feel like there's a whole lot more that we can dive into. I want to hear some more about favorite cars, favorite drivers, favorite tracks. Okay. There's going to be more to tell, so let's take a quick break. YouTube, we'll check this out. We'll call this first session, whatever, hot laps, whatever. We'll come back on the next heat race or something like that here in just a few moments.